Hello everybody. I've managed to get up to the refuge today, as some of you who watch my social media know that I injured my right hip. I broke my pelvis a few years ago and I possibly didn't remain as active as I should have done after that. So then I had a bit of a fall and I'm told there's no more fracture, but I've developed quite bad arthritis and that's got to be treated. I have to become mobile. I couldn't survive here if I'm not. But at the moment I'm staggering around on sticks and having lots of Berber remedies, which are wonderful, but I'll talk about those another day. First of all, I've come on here to speak specifically about the Caleche horses, and then something that has arisen this morning that is very troubling as well. I was sent last week a picture of a Caleche horse that had dropped to the ground. I would think heat exhaustion, pulling not a very well maintained caleche, which are the carts the tourists go round on. And the owner was just trying to pull it to its feet. Some local people intervened and said it had to go and rest. And he then agreed. He asked the passengers to disembark. And Spanner were contacted, and I think the police were as well. But again, it's triggered off the campaign about the caleches. And you may remember that during the pandemic, when we were all locked down in Morocco, and I mean completely locked down, there was an issue because the Caleche owners, a lot of them contacted me and said, our horses are starving because there are no tourists, we've got no work. And at that time, Spanner, which is the organisation that looked after the Caleche horses, had actually closed its gates because of the lockdown. Now, I have to say, I'm not making any aspersions there at the moment, but at that time, we were going out every day and we got nothing but cooperation from the gendarmerie and from the police, and we were picking up animals all over Morocco, equines, I must say equines, only mules, donkeys, and then it was horses, because we did help the Caleche owners. And since then, we have several rescued Caleche horses here, and we've quite a history now. And we have retrained those Caleche horses and retrained them to work at liberty, which is pretty amazing, really. But of course, it's still going on, isn't it? Now, I have to say to you, however hard we all try, we're not going to be able to eliminate Caleche horses from Marrakech overnight. It would be a very, very long process. And in fairness to some of the really good families and some very good young people who look after their horses very well, those are the people that we have to support, and we have to maintain our opposition and our concerns and our reporting mechanisms about those that are treated so badly. And it's only a very small proportion that are treated well. Now, some of those drivers are going to come and see me, and I think that's very important because we all want to work together. My own view is that ultimately it would be very good to have an area in Marrakech where the Caleche horses could be there. Caleche horses well looked after, well fed, well maintained, are perfectly happy pulling a caleche, but within restricted hours and sheltered when it's hot, all the things you would expect to happen to a working animal. I think it's a much bigger picture than people just responding to me and saying, shut them down, they must be eliminated. We live in another country, another culture, and in Marrakech, these horses have been part of the tradition, way back, I think, to between 1926 and 1950, certainly when the French were here, and since. But of course, tourism has increased, and the attitude amongst a lot of tourists has changed. And what causes me the most worry is that so many tourists now seem to think that if they come on holiday in a place like Morocco, that it's okay to use animals in the tourist industry. Hence the difficulty we had with the Shetlands in Meknes Square in Meknes. Little Shetland ponies that were hunched up all day with a big saddle on so that tourists could have their photographs taken with them. And we are working very hard to build a Shetland dedicated space here that we will call Meknes Square in memory of Halima, who was the very first Shetland to come here when she had her baby en route, if you remember. So more and more people are now becoming aware of how there can be so much cruelty in tourism, but there still remains many tourists who seem to think it's okay, and that's going to be the interface and the battle. So this morning, as you could imagine, I was horrified to be sent an Instagram post. And it's an organisation that seems to be fairly new, and it's called Les Petits Dads. I'm not quite sure if I'm spelling that correctly. It is French. It's a French family who have some miniature American ponies, and they take them out and use them at children's parties, and children are allowed to paint them, dress them up, put jewels on their feet if they want to. Now, I found this quite horrendous in a country like this, where so many of us are working so hard to save the working animals. We really have to, with our young people and our children, get them to understand to respect animals. And of course, that's what happens when young people come here. Lots of children come here and visit with their parents, and they are able to go and stroke the donkeys. If they want to groom a donkey, we can certainly help them do that. But they have to be introduced to the concept of welfare and compassion. Of course, some of you who know me well will know that my background before I came to Marrakech was in psychiatry and in the law. And when I was a barrister, my specialism was psychiatry, mental health issues, human rights. But I'm telling you that because I, over the years, cross-examined so many psychiatrists. It became almost my daily work at one time. And of course, the one thing I learnt is that if somebody has committed a crime and is very dangerous and goes into what we call them special hospitals in the UK, where they are in a secure hospital, the very first thing a psychiatrist will ask their families is how did they behave when they were children? Did they pick wings off flies? Did they, tread on a frog or ill-treat a rabbit? Because it starts at that stage and it grows into, ultimately, abuse of humans. And the best thing we can do to protect our children against developing into adults who may engage in cruel practices is that when they're young, teach them to respect animals. And if you can't have a dog or a cat, have a hamster or a rabbit, and your young child can learn to look after it and care for it. That creates a bond that is so important later on in life, which of course takes me on to our ethical base here. I get so many comments on social media about I hate humans and I love animals. I can understand why people say that, but here at Georgia, that is not the case. We value humans, we value animals, we value the people who work here, we value the local village. We have all our work done by local people. Crops are grown specifically for us, and we're creating a whole industry. And I have found over the last 10 years an incredible feeling of compassion, strength amongst not only our team, but people who are associated with Giorgio. And I think that is just so important. And if you do look at our TripAdvisor or our reviews on Google, you will see time and time again that that is reflected, that when people visit, they step into our refuge and they feel a sense of calm in beautiful surroundings where animals are well looked after. For me, what a wonderful way to end my life. But I promise you, when we are gone, when Charles and I are gone, we are already preparing for the future, and Giorgio will continue. Giorgio as it is our gift, our legacy for Morocco. That's all I'm going to say today, but perhaps we'll speak again in the next day or two. Thank you for listening.